So you just want to play comps that don't need too much thinking and you can just sit back and force it every game. Well, look no further because Exterior is here to tell you what is the best reroll comps in patch 14.10b. In this video, we're going to cover what is the strongest reroll comps. And we're going to start off with a comp that has been exploding in popularity and win rate, which is Garen's Storied Champion. In order to play this comp, you have to have the hero augment Storied champion, because if you don't, Garen's not gonna be strong enough. But the premise is having a 3-star Garen, and his best items would be Bloodthirster and Titans. You could do Archangel Staff if you want to one-shot the board for fun, but the best item for the current meta would be Declaw, because most of the units is currently heavily on AP right now in the current meta, since AD is kind of weak at the moment, and the only AD comp that's strong at the moment would be Ashe. And then you just fill up the whole board with Warden, and then you put the backline units because he's a Story Weaver. You put in a Zoe because it gives you Arcanist with Alawi, so it gives Garen that extra AP. And then early game you can play either Zyra or Sivir, and you just replace it with Irelia. And you get anti-heal such as Zoe Merlicon or Irelia Red Buff. And then for KO, you want to put green on her so she can get that armor shred for Garen. One of the most strongest reroll comps without having certain augments would be Zyra Ghostly. Since they buff Ghostly, it's a very powerful synergy right now, and Sage is also one of the strongest synergy in the current meta. So you have Zyra as your main carry with Spirit Soulgen, and you can put either Static Shiv or Rage Blade, or the best item would be Nashor's Tooth for your attack speed, so Zyra can keep casting. And then the amplifier items such as Death Cap, Archangel Staff, or Jewel Gauntlet is fine on her. And then for your main tank, it will be Shen, and the best thing to put on Ghostly units would be Onyx Spark, since Ghostly does magic damage. But if you have Onyx Spark, then you don't need Static Shiv on Zyra, because having 2 shred items is kind of pointless to be honest, but I mean, it's not the worst to have if you have it, but I wouldn't utilize it like that. And then the best tank items you could put on Shen would be like Redemption, Gargoyle Stoneplate, +1 if you don't need the Onyx Spark. And to fill up the rest of the board, it will be Sage units with Zyra, such as Morgana, and then you throw in Diana when you hit level 8. For the most part, you're going to be playing level 7 this board, so the level 7 units you could be playing is with Zoe, Riven for Story Weaver on Zyra, and then Aatrox, Alawi, so you can get the 4 Ghostly with Morgana and Shen. And then because you need an anti-heal item, you can put red buff, or the best one would be Merlicon on Morgana, since Morgana is an AoE unit. And then since you're going to be playing this board mostly at level 7, you want a 3-star Zyra and Shen, since those two are going to be your main carries. And if you can, any other unit on the board, you know, like Riven, Aatrox, Alawi, and Zoe. If you have leftover AP items, you can throw it on Zoe, because she'll be pretty strong since they also buffed her too. And then if you have leftover 80 bruiser items such as Bloodthirster, Titans, you could throw it on Riven. Since we're on the topic of Ghostly, Senna Ghostly is also pretty decent at the moment. This was really popular at the beginning of the set, and is making a comeback at the moment since Ghostly got buffed. And then for Shen, it would be the same items, but though instead of having a Zoe, Riven, and a Zyra, you use Jax, Senna, and then instead of 4 Ghostly, it's 6 Ghostly with Caitlyn and Kayn. This board is pretty easy and simple to play. It's just mostly Ink Shadow units and Ghostly units. And then for Senna items, you want to put a Last Whisper, Rage Blade, and then +180 items such as the Ink Shadow item, or like any artifact item is fine as well. And if you don't like putting Last Whisper on Senna, you can put it on Caitlyn as well, so you can have a +1 item on Senna. But for the most part, yeah, this board is mostly just all Ghostly with Jax and Senna. If you have leftover 80 bruiser items, you can just throw it on Kayn, so you can have a secondary carry. To roll for this board, you play level 6 with 3-starring Senna, Shen, and if you can, Aatrox. Alawi is fine if you get 3-star as well, same with Caitlyn. Jax, I wouldn't really prioritize 3-starring, but if you can 3-star him, it's fine. If not, just don't get him because it's a waste of inventory space. Even though they did buff them, I wouldn't say it's justifiable to 3-star him. And then once you get your 3-star Senna, you just play fast 8 to play 6 Ghostly. Unless you have a Ghostly spat, then just throw it on Jax, and you take out Jax for Udyr later down the line. Another strong reroll comp you can play that is pretty flexible with different multiple carries would be Duelist. This comp is kinda different than most reroll comps because you can have either 3 cost reroll or you can do 2 cost reroll. The way how you determine that is by seeing how many Kianas you have. If you have 5 Kianas before stage 3, then you might as well just play Kiana reroll so you can keep templing. And the best items to put on Kiana and Volibear would be Bloodthirster and Double Titans. But for Volibear, if you can't get Double Titans, or Crown Guard is fine. And if for Kiana, like Lee Sin, you could throw Edge of Night, and then if you want to temple to 8 instead to play Lee Sin carry instead of rerolling, you can do that with both their Titans and Edge of Night, or Double Titans is fine, or even Sterak's. Sterak's on Kiana is also okay as well. And if you have a Duelist spat, you can throw it either on Wukong or Diana. And the full board would be technically 8 Duelists if you can with the spat, but if you're playing for 6 Duelists, it would be having all the Duelists that you can fit in besides Darius, and you throw in Diana with Irelia. Unless you can't get Irelia, then Darius is fine. And then the best item for Irelia would be anti-heal such as red buff or Merlicon, so she hits the whole board. And she also armor breaks, by the way. So if you cannot find an Irelia, an even shroud on the board will help a lot. Or you can throw Last Whisper on Tristana, and the best items with Tristana would be Runa's Hurricane, Gunblade +1. So like I said earlier, if you can't get that armor break, then you can just put Last Whisper on Tristana, it's okay too. And then the levels you want to play this board would be either level 6 for Kiana 3, or you can play level 7 for either Kiana 3 with Tristana 3 and Volibear 3. Unless you're playing for Volibear and Tristana carry, then you roll down at 7. If not, if you have a Duelist bet, I would recommend at least 2-starring a Volibear and Tristana at level 7, so you can save HP, and then hit level 8 to 3-star the rest of the board. Next up, a returning comp that most of us know how to play, which is Kog Maw Reroll. This comp is very easy and basic to do, it's just all mythic. Unless you have a mythic spat, then you throw in a Lawi with Caitlyn, and then anti-heal on either Hui or Lilia. Items is pretty self-explanatory, most of us know how to play this at this point, so there's no point in explaining it. Next up, we got the hero augments, which is Neeko's Drop Blossom, and you can only play this comp if you have the hero augment Drop Blossom. If not, it's not gonna work. This comp got a huge buff recently because it was so underwhelming, so they had to buff it. And the best items on Neeko would be Archangel Staff, Bloodthirster, Gargoyle Stoneplate. You kind of have to build this perfect item, so for her to be the strongest on the board. And then same thing like the Kog Maw comp is pretty self-explanatory. It's just all mythic. But the difference is instead of having a Caitlyn, you have a Soraka, because Soraka is a heavy unit with Malphite, and Soraka gives you more AP. So having more AP on Neeko will help a lot. But if you cannot get a mythic spat, then throwing out a +1 mythic unit is fine. The position you want to play this board in is like being level 6, so you can roll down for a Neeko 3. Other than that, just throw all mythics and you're fine. Next up is another hero augment, which is Shen Ethereal Blades. This comp is actually very powerful right now because Shen does true damage, and then you want to put items on him such as double Rage Blade and a Giant Slayer. If you can't do double Rage Blade, at least one Rage Blade, and then other like bow items such as Red Buff is fine, or Nashor's Tooth. And then if you need some more like attack speed, Guard Breaker is okay too, or QSS. For the most part, it's just all attack speed items if you can. And then the main tank would be Yorick with Declaw, Redemption, +1 other tank item, like Bramble or Gargoyle Stoneplate, or even Adaptive Helm is fine. And you just play the full board with just Behemoths, with 2 Sage, which is Morgana, because Morgana is a Ghostly with Shen, and then you throw out either Dinah or Wukong. That's basically about it. Pretty simple. But the only way to play this comp is unless you have the hero augment. If not, you cannot play this comp. And then the level you want to play this comp at is at level 6 to reroll Yorick 3 with Shen 3. If you can't get Yorick 3, it's fine. As long as you get Shen 3, just level as fast as you can, so you can throw out 6 Behemoths. Next up is another hero augment, which is Yorick Midnight Siphon. Like the other hero augments, you cannot play this comp unless you have the augment. And then to play this comp, you have to be level 6 to roll for Yorick 3. And the best items on him would be Declaw, Redemption, +1 tank items such as Bramble and Adaptive Helm. Same thing like the Shen comp. And then instead of Shen as the backline carry, you have a Loon as the backline carry. And if you could 3-star her, that'd be great. If not, it's fine. But you want to put Spirit Sojourn on her, which is her best item with Merlicon. A plus AP item would be Archangel Staff is the best. If not, Death Cap or Jewel Gauntlet is fine. And then if you have a Umbral Spat, which is very good for later down the line, you throw it on Irelia because Irelia utilizes this item really well, and she is one of the best 5-cost DPS out there. If you can't have a Spat, then you just throw out a Yone instead of Vinazir because Invoker is not too important. But rest of the units are actually good, like having the Ornn and Nautilus because it gives you Behemoth with Yorick with Ornn, and then Nautilus gives you Warden with Set. And then if you have AP items such as Onyx Spark and stuff, throw it on Silas. Or Crown Guard or Adaptive Helm is good on him as well as a secondary carry. Another strong hero augment comp is Kuboko's Lucky Paws. Since AD is kind of weak at the moment, Kuboko kind of shines in the AP heavy meta since you can put Declaw on him to get that resistance against all the AP units. Or it's just all Bruiser with Story Weaver because you have 2 Story Weaver Bruisers. You just throw Irelia in. And then since you have a KO with Story Weaver, just throw green on her because it gives her the armor pen and the magic resist shred. And then when you hit level 9, you just throw in a Azir because of Dryad with Rek'Sai, and Rek'Sai is very powerful at the moment too, so you just 3-star her with Kuboko. Other than that, it's just pretty self-explanatory. You want to put 80 Bruiser items on Riven, AP Bruiser items on Silas. If not, you could throw Sunfire or other tank items on Rek'Sai. And then finally, we got to our last comp, which is Bard Reroll with Wits End. This item is very powerful on Bard because it gives him more attack speed, it gives him Omnivamp, and it gives him AP, which is all 3 things that Bard would need. And then his best items on Bard would be Double Rage Blade plus Wits End. If not, you could do Gunblade, but that's only valid unless you have a Forbidden Idol on Tahm Kench. This board essentially needs like the Ornn artifact items with either Forbidden Idol or Wits End. If not, this board is not strong enough to win. And then for this board's position, you want to hit level 7, the 3-star Bard with Tahm Kench. And if you can, Soraka 3, Zoe 3 is fine. And then to fill in the rest of the board, you throw in level 8 with a Rakan. And then to fit the synergies in, because Bard is a mythic, having Neeko is a mythic, same with Tahm Kench. And then Tahm Kench is a bruiser with Riven. And Riven's a Story Weaver with Sivir and Zoe to get KO. And then for KO, you put red on her to get attack speed for Bard. And then since Zoe is an Arcanist, Neeko is also an Arcanist, so you get extra AP on the board. And then since Soraka gives Alturas, it's a good reason to throw her in with Riven. And she's also a heavily unit with Neeko, so it gives you more AP on the board and you get more HP. So this board just synergizes really well with together. But if you still want to play this comp without the artifact items, you can do at least Gunblade on Bard, it'll be okay. and a +1 tank item on Tom Kench is okay as well, but I'm not gonna say you're gonna win with it. And that is it for my strongest reroll comps in patch 14.10b. If you want me to do a specific video on a certain comp, I can explain more in detail with the augments and stuff. Just let me know in the comments down below. And if you have any questions about any of the comps currently, you could just let me know and I'll try to answer to the best of my capabilities. Until then, I'll see you guys next time. Later.